Morning. This video today, I'm going to be answering some questions that people have asked me in the last 24 hours about the video I made yesterday about empathy and narcissists. And so I'm going to read the questions and then answer them. Okay, so the first one is from Anne, and she said, after watching the video, she said, so you've met my family and my ex-husband then? Yeah, they do kind of, they're all the same, aren't they, really? I understand and agree with everything you say here, Deborah. I see them now, too. It's obvious once the penny drops, but it took me to the age of 46 to fully get it. I think my question would be, how do you move on after a horrific experience of living for so many years with a narcissist? I'm 53 now and completely incapable of letting a man get close to me. I don't think it's so much the fear of it happening again. I can smell the assault a mile away, and they don't even get past the hello stage. But I can't seem to allow the normal ones to get close either. I think that is so normal, because when we've been hurt and abused and then we see through it, I think what happens is it's because we have embraced our own male side, our own narcissistic side. So when you meet a man, even if he's nice, that part of you comes out for self-preservation. It goes, nope, straight away. And it's like, and it's a natural reaction to having been hurt. And also, and like you say now that you can see through them, and hopefully that's completely true, you can. I'm not saying you're lying, but I think sometimes we think we can see through them in our feminine, but actually we can't. And so the male side is saying no for a reason. Or it might just be that because I've known Anne for a long time. We met years ago at a retreat where I was working, and we hit it off. And we made friends on Facebook, and we've stayed friends. Anne is one of the most amazing women that I feel very inspired by. She seems strong, she's independent, she does things she enjoys, she's always doing something, she acts, she interviews people. She used to have a TV show when she lived in Spain. She's a really amazing, well-rounded woman. And so my question back to you, Anne, would be, why do you feel that you need a man? Because you don't. Look how brilliantly your life is going, how independent you are, how you can do whatever you want whenever you want without having to compromise yourself because somebody else might not want you to do it or might not like what you're doing. Because it sounds, and seeing you, it sounds like there is a wholeness in you. And so I think that when we've got that, the feminine may well still do the kind of thing, because it wants to, the feminine automatically wants to turn towards men, but the masculine is still too traumatized and hurt to allow it to happen. And so I think that maybe if the right person comes along, it would appear right. But I've come to the conclusion with myself that I can't have relationships anymore, because how I see it now is the only people that I'm attracted to are narcissists. And so it's there's something about the particular type of narcissist that floats my boat, which was the same as my stepfather, because he was the one that trained me to love. So when they appear to be just like him, I am literally powerless to see it. Now, whether or not I'll see it now, I don't know. But the thing is, you're attracted to them. That's where your attraction comes from, because you're attracted to the energy, not the person. It's the energy that they're giving out. So I feel that when I meet somebody that doesn't give out that energy, there's no attraction. So that means that you either continually have relationships with narcissistic people, or you have to have relationships with someone you don't find attractive. So I personally feel for myself that I don't have any more relationships. I feel whole in myself now, so I don't feel that I need a relationship. I don't need somebody telling me what to do. You see, I think what happens is when you've been so subjected to people controlling you, the very thought, once you see through it, if anybody ever trying to control you again, is completely unacceptable. So maybe you can have a relationship if when you meet someone you don't drop into that place that you always go to when you're in a relationship. I can physically feel myself become different when I'm around a narcissistic man. I immediately go into this pleasing mode, wanting to make them well, because basically what I was trying to do was to make that man inside of me well. The energy is in the male inside of me. This is the same energy as the covert narcissist. And so I was in denial of that part inside of me. And so I was trying to find him out there so I could fix him out there in the hope it would fix me in here. But it's not going to happen because you can't fix them. But you can fix your own. You can fix your own by listening to it and allowing it to be there. I had, during this whole experience, just before I saw through this, all through this experience of my changing of my mind, I've had this part in me that I've never quite been able to tame. And it would always come to me, it would come up, I would feel it come up, and it would have a real, I wouldn't say it was a dark feeling because it felt childish. It felt like a child that was rejected. And it used to say to me, I am an abomination. And I would say to it over and over again that it was not an abomination and that I loved it, and that come to me, I would say to it. You're not an abomination, come to me. And this part would always say to me, I am an abomination. And I'd say, well, I accept you as you are. But I was trying to make it soft. I was saying, I accept you if you yield to me. If you give up your abomination-ness, then I can love you. But what it was saying to me is, no, actually that is what I am. I am an abomination. And I'd never actually looked into what that was. And I looked it up last night. And I was thinking, what is the definition of the word abomination? So, according to Google, it's a thing that causes disgust or loathing. Describing words for it is it causes atrocity, disgrace, horror, obscenity, outrage, curse, torment, evil, crime, monstrosity, violation. And this part is saying to me, that's what I am. Now that is the very root of the darkness within every human being. You look at someone like Donald Trump, he's capable because he lives in that abomination energy. He's capable of all of those things. People that are completely narcissistic, egoic, that's what they are. So this part in me is saying to me, I'm an abomination because I have the capacity for atrocity, disgrace, horror, obscenity, outrage, curse, torment, evil, crime, monstrosity, violation. It's saying that to me, and I'm saying, come here, baby. Oh, come on, mama. Oh, come on, mama. And it's going, no, you're missing the point. What I am is this. And then when I realised that that's what I was doing, I was trying to tame something totally untamable. It is part of the human psyche, this part that is capable of that. It's psychopathy. It's the part of you that's right over no feelings at all. If you can drop into that place, because now I can see my whole mind, I can move anywhere. I can go right over in the biggest joy, right over to the other end where there's psychosis. I can visit any place because I'm not in denial of any place in me. When I go to that part, it is completely cold, completely cut off. It's very self-serving. It doesn't care about anything or anybody. All it has in its sights is its own gratification. Now, when somebody has gone over to the dark side, into narcissism or egomania, or whatever you want to call it, or just completely, you can call it anything. Narcissism has become a very popular word in the present time to describe what we've been describing forever, angel or devil, the yin and the yang. It's all, it's all through everything, because this has always been the problem in humanity. It's the point of the game, this disconnect, this cut-offness. So in every human being, you have the absolute capacity for brilliant, loving kindness, And at the other end, you have the capacity for atrocities, disgraces, horror, obscenities, outrage, all the horrible things. Because this part down here, that's what it is. It only cares about self-preservation. It is completely unemotional. It's the part of you that should only really come out under complete danger. But with people who were brought up in a place where they could never feel safe, the only place they could feel safe was to go over there, into that thinking where feelings couldn't reach. If you think of it like a parameter, and it stops in the middle. One side is completely feminine and empathic. This side is completely disconnected. This goes all the way to absolute nothing. This goes all the way to absolute everything. Now, in a rounded people, those two parts are together because it hasn't had to cut off. Now, if danger happened, this part would go to there and it would protect this part. But in somebody who's become narcissistic, when they were a child, they went over here because it was the safest place to be. It's where they could breathe. It was the only place where they could feel safe. Because when you go over there, you feel powerful because you're not connected to anything. If you're not connected to any kind of feelings or anything, you're ultimately powerful because nothing can bother you. Nothing can get to you. Now, with people that are over in psychosis, really psychotic people, the sort of psychopath end, if someone's gone all the way over there, then they're not even touched by the emotions at all. The gap between is so big, there's this vast cavern between the two, and the two parts, it cannot any longer hear this side that's going, listen to me, oh my God, I've got feelings. It's just right over here. With somebody who's a little bit narcissistic, they'll be around about here, so they still can hear it, and they can maybe kind of listen to it, but it's own thinking, because it's head thinking. It's emotionless head thinking, as opposed to feeling thinking. When the two come together, when you become whole, what happens is they complement each other. So when this is thinking, this part over here is telling it the feelings and it's listening to them. And then this part over here listens to the head saying, actually, we need to be a bit more sensible about this. So the two parts learn to listen, rather than when this part speaks to this part goes, oh my God, I hate you. You're so horrible. You're so mean. You're so evil. And the same the other way, when this part speaks, this part's not going, oh, you're so ridiculous. I can't believe that you think that. You're so... It's kind of dismissive and eye-rolly and at the prospect of this side having ideas. So when we can be in all of those places, we can become whole, because we can go through everything and we can accept everything. Now, I feel that now this has happened, and this part that was telling me it was an abomination, I've accepted it's an abomination. I accept that inside of me, at my very lowest place of functioning, there is a monster. We've all got a monster, and we've all got an angel. We will have the devil and an angel. We will have the capacity for absolute evil and absolute saintliness. And when you can accept all of those possibilities within you, you will no longer be a pushover, because both parts are together, working together, rather than being stuck over here where you don't like that. It's horrible. That's what empathic people do. We move away from that, because when we saw that when we were children, when we saw that in people, that thing that causes disgust and loathing, when you see that coming out of someone regularly, as you do when you grow up in an abusive household, you have no choice but to reject that, because it's so distasteful that this part that cannot bear it moves completely away. In somebody who goes completely in head, they go the other way, this way, so they move completely away from emotions. And so that's what's going on inside the psyche. That means that we are automatically attracted to this from here when we cannot own our own. But when we can on our own, we no longer need to find anything to bring in. We are whole in ourselves. So I don't know whether I answered Anne's question or whether I just went off on a tangent. I'm very good at doing that. So the next question is from a lovely young man I know, and he says, another brilliant video, JP, absolutely incredible insight. You clearly spend a lot of time looking at behaviour in people. I do. I wasn't so much affected by a narcissistic partner, but I had very narcissistic parents, my mum in particular. I could kill the woman. I cannot forgive her, but I worry if it's eating me up sometimes, the hatred. She recently gave me money because I was in financial trouble, but because my dad has never helped me, it's you better remember that I did that for you and be grateful because he never did anything for you. I think it's the last straw. I have to let her go, but never would have if I could have avoided it. But I know that she loves it now because when I don't speak to her, she calls me out to everyone. Is this narcissistic abuse or manipulation? Yes, it is. Absolutely. And she's been doing that to you all your life. And so, you know, obviously you and I have had conversations on Skype, so I kind of know a bit of your background. And for other people that don't know, I hope you don't mind me saying, I don't think you will, this guy has OCD. Now, the reason he has that is because his feminine, that should be able to be completely free and exploratory, because that's what the feminine is. It's expression. It's fiery. It wants to know everything. It wants to explore everything. It's open, expansive. But because of the way that this mother has treated you, your mother has treated you, what's happened is your feminine is full of her. And so you've become stuck in your own flat, unable to leave, because if you do, the OCD becomes so strong because she's programmed you with so much hatred that you cannot love that feminine, expansive side. So the hatred that you feel for her and that feeling you want to kill her, that is a feeling you're also having for your inner female. So you can't embrace that soft feminine side of you because in front of that soft feminine, because it is there, but in front of it is mother, this horrible woman. Like the things that, you know, my mum used to do things like that all the time, would continuously tell me what an absolute piece of shit my father was. She would go on and on and on about how awful he was. You know, and by her doing that, what she was doing was undermining my male energy, because I'm made of my father. So what she was saying to me is that part of you that's him, I completely don't accept it. That man is awful. I'm half that man. So she was telling me that my male energy was just unacceptable. So I cannot trust the male in me because she's undermined it. There's lots of reasons I couldn't trust it. That's just one of them. You know, these mothers, they drive you mental because there is no logic to them at all. And your head tries to see and find some logic, but it can't because nothing they do or say is logical. It doesn't make sense. So the head gets right confused. So in an empath, we stop trying to work it out and we just drop in the place where we just feel completely overwhelmed. With somebody who goes narcissistic, they move away from that way into the place where there's no feelings. So then they just think from head of how to keep this person on track. And so their way of dealing it will often appear to be a lot more stable because they've moved over where there isn't any feelings. So they just project what wants to be said. They don't go into, oh my God, you're driving me crazy, like an empathic person does, because when these people attack an empathic person, they can't make sense of it. It's smacking at all of the parts inside of you. And then the empathic person is far more likely to explode than the narcissist. The narcissist has more control. It's all up here, where the empath has this kind of energy in them that just can't be, you can't tame it down. Because what actually needs to happen is the two, if you're whole, when this part starts going off and this part can hear it, this part will go, you're all right, I'm with you. What it is this. And what it is, and it's fine, and I will look after it. But when they're not together, this is going crazy over here, or in the narcissist, they're over here in control. And depending on how intelligent they are, the intelligence makes a difference, because intelligent people are better thinkers. And so the more intelligent a narcissist is, the more controlling they are, but more subtle they are. Stupid narcissists, they give themselves away because they don't actually have the brain power. But clever narcissists, they don't give themselves away very well. They're incredibly good at manipulation. They have a mask for every occasion, and they will put on exactly the right mask for the right person. And so they can go out in the world and appear really together. But also another thing, like with the mother thing, and when I read this last night, I started thinking about the way that my mother used to behave. And, you know, these people are just so impossible to be around, because from whatever angle you come at them, you will always be wrong. You will always be made to feel stupid. You will be devalued constantly. Like my mum would devalue me at every opportunity, because in her mind I was a liability, because I had the key to spoiling her life because of the fact that I was sexually molested by her husband, and then because I've now realised his manipulation, and the fact that she was absolutely petrified ever of upsetting her parents. To her, if they had known this, it would have been awful. The shame she would have felt, everybody knowing, was greater than her desire to protect her child. And so instead of, her shame outshadowed her mothering. And so she decided in that minute that if we all just pretended it hadn't happened, she wouldn't have to be shamed. But of course it ate away at her, because I might speak out. And so what she would do is undermine me at any given opportunity to make sure that I didn't. But I also can see now that her crazy thinking, she was believing it. Like one of the things she used to do, because she would have decided on some particular day that maybe I would tell. So I'd come home from school and I'd walk in the door and she would just be on me with this made up story that she had, that in her head was real, that if I did certain things it would result in certain outcomes, which it would. But what she would do is she would say to me, if you ever tell, it will kill Granny and Grandad. So in my head, okay, if I speak out, my grandparents will die. I mean, logically, I would think, well, no, they won't. But this part of me that would be, oh my God, thinking about my grandparents dead. Another thing that would happen would be that my stepfather would have to go to prison, and that he'd be beaten up and all this. And I would go into the place, because I realise now I did have Stockholm Syndrome. I didn't want him to be beaten up. I loved him. He was the person that taught me how to love. Then he violated me and took that away. So again, there's conflict there, because the person that taught me to love then broke that love. So the man that programmed me to love then violated me. So how can you then trust that part of you that's programmed by someone that then goes on to do something terrible to you? It's going to put mistrust in you, isn't it? It can't not. So yeah, my mother would do this. So he would go to prison, she would probably go to prison, and she would die if she had to go to prison. My sister would have to go into a children's home. I would have to go into a home for delinquents, because she would up the ante for me. So I would have to go somewhere where she would say horrible things like that I would be beaten up, I would be raped in the showers with other girls using broom handles. Where she got that from, whether she just imagined it, she'd heard it from somewhere, but she would say to me, if this happens, this is going to happen to you. And she would say it in a way that, do you not realise that you are going to be raped if you speak up? But I think in her adult crazy mind, she believed these things as being true. And she would say things to me like, if I told, I would end up having to go into a home, and then I would be mixing with the scum of the earth, and I would turn into the scum of the earth, and that I would become a prostitute, I'd be homeless, I would never make anything of myself, no one would want me, I would just be a disgrace. You know, and when you're given that all the time, there's no place for you to build up a sense of self. Because for me, if I'd embraced my narcissistic side and stood up and gone, actually, all of this is fucked right up and you are abusing me, because I knew she was. But if I had, the implications would have, because the other side of my mind, so this part goes, I've got to speak out. Then the other part comes out and goes, no, don't say anything, because it's holding all of the shit that she's programmed in there. So our minds become this kind of adult place. And like you saying about that you could kill that woman. I used to have feelings like that sometimes for my mother. She would be so horrible But it would depend on the type. Sometimes I would just want to get away from her, but sometimes her manipulation would be in such a way that I would just want to punch her because she was just so unreasonable. I remember one point she'd had a car accident because she'd gone out drunk in the early hours of the morning. God knows what she was doing. And she managed to roll her car. And by some kind of miracle, the only thing wrong with her was that she'd hit her head. This wasn't the first time she had a car accident and split her head open. She did it when I was a child as well. This time I was about 15. So she'd split her head open. I think she'd done something to her ankle. I don't think it was broken, but it was hurt. She was very lucky because the car was a write-off. So I get a phone call to say that Mum's had this terrible accident. I wasn't living with them at the time. I was living with my father. And she was being horrible to me most of the time if I did see her. So I go round to see her. She's sitting in the lounge, all propped up in cushions, completely the victim, completely out of the place where she caused her own accident by being drunk. She was just completely in victim mode. So I walk in the room and I say, hello, hello? And she looks at me like, oh my God, oh, I can't take this right now. I've got enough on my plate without you coming in here. And then I dyed my hair black. Admittedly, it looked like it was awful. And she was, look at the state of your hair. And then she was looking away from me as if I was just, it was just too awful for her to have to see me because it was so absolutely, And she sat there doing that, and all I'd done was to go to see her. But in her head, she had, at this point, decided that I was the absolute monster. I was this horrible person that was breaking her life because I might tell. And in that moment, I can remember standing there and I was watching her being so pathetic and so, poor me, and that I actually felt like I wanted to punch her right in the face. But what I did was I just left. And I think I did say something like, why are you being like this? Because then she shouts to the other room, to my stepfather, quick, come, she's abusing me. She used to do that a lot. She would attack. She used to physically attack. She would come flying across the room at you, attack you, and I would push her off. I wouldn't hit her back, I would push her away. And then she would fall dramatically to the floor. And then she would lie there as if she was dead. Or like she was just coming round having just been knocked out. And then she would go straight to the telephone. And she would ring somebody up. And then she would say, she's just abused me again. She's just attacked me. And of course I'd be stood there like, oh my God, it was so frustrating. Because she wouldn't mention the fact that I'd walked in the door and she'd been going at me for an hour, eventually attacked me, and then I'd retaliated. It'd just be, she's doing it. She's doing the thing she does. And I would just go and hide in my bedroom because it was such a head fuck. It's so, when you're in that situation, it's so hard to find a footing in yourself because everything is just crazy. It's a crazy place to live. But it becomes our normal program. We expect people to be crazy. When people act crazy, it doesn't. We know crazy. We don't know stability. So when we're around people that are crazy, it doesn't feel odd to us. But it does. Somewhere it feels odd. But we put up with it because it's what we learnt to do. And so, what you've got to do, my lovely, is you've got to start really looking at what your mother did to you, how she impacted you. The things she said to you, the way she said them, you've got to go into those places and see it from the inside. And like, for example, when I think about that time with her, my mother sat there doing all the, my instinct is that I would like to have punched her in the face. So in my imagination, I can be in that situation and I can walk up and I can slap her around the face and say, grow the fuck up, you stupid bitch. Because in that minute, that would have been satisfying. So you can do that in your head. And there'll be times, like my mother would go into dissolving into child mode. So, and then I would be the one comforting her. She would be sitting on the floor with her head in my lap, crying, saying that she couldn't believe he had done what he'd done, because it would be when she had decided she didn't like him. And I would be the one sat there stroking her hair, saying, it's all right, mummy, it's all right, mummy. It doesn't matter. I'm all right. It will be all right. But never at any point would she, even when she was saying, I can't believe he did that to you, it would never be that it was wrong, if you know. It'd be, but I can't believe he did that to you, but look how it's affecting me. It was like I didn't exist as something that had feelings of my own. Because the thing is with these mothers, I have a friend whose mother was, and still is, incredibly abusive. Now, my friend is now in her late 30s, and her mother is still abusing her now mentally. When she was a child, she physically abused her to an appallingly atrocious level. Now, this woman still, when she sees her, is horrible to her. And, my friend has said to me about, she can't see it. She will never see it. Because imagine if she suddenly saw her daughter as a human being. What would happen? She would have to accept that all the atrocious things that she did when my friend was a child, she would have to accept responsibility for them. And so from these mothers' points of view, it's easier to stay in this person is a monster. It's because of her. It's because of her. She's never been a good person. She's always been, that's what they act like. So if this woman was to come out of that and see the reality of the monster that she was and still is, it would crucify her. And so she can't do that. So she has to still be being horrible to her daughter, even though her daughter is one of the loveliest people I've ever met. Yet whenever she sees her mother, she's abused by her. This is the sort of mother that will, if they're in company, will not be particularly nice to her, but when no one's looking, will mouth "fuck off" at her across the room. Things like that. And then act as if she hasn't done anything. And then when my friend gets upset and runs away, she's like, "Oh, she's so dramatic. I haven't done anything." Smirking to herself that she's caused another piece of misery. These people are just utterly toxic. And the only way that we can survive from them is to break contact with them. And when it's your mother, it's hard. I used to break contact with my mother. She would drive me to the point where I would just not see her for a while. But then she would always ring me up in a state of distress, and I would feel sad because underneath the pain, I loved my mother so much. She was, my world when I was little. She was the absolute light of my life, apple of my eye. And so the fact that she's now turned into this monster, it's devastating, because even when there's part of you, the male side will go into, "I hate her, she's horrible," but still the child in you is going, "I want my mummy, I love my mummy." So there's this mismatch inside your psyche. One part is self-preservation, don't let her abuse you. The other part is mummy love me, mummy love me. And so it's really very confusing. But the way to undo it is to go into all of those horrible memories and sort them out from the inside. Be the thing that you wanted her to be. Be your own mother. Be the part that goes, "Actually, she was wrong, but I'm here for you now." And then you can set it free. Right, now this is another email. Now this one is a little bit different because there's a little bit of a story towards this. Now this person is, I would say, stalking me, actually. This person I had, after I split up with my partner, I'd met this person through these videos and we'd become friends online. When my partner left, still under the narcissistic spell, he's virtually the same energy as my partner. I was drawn straight into that. And we were friends, and it felt very natural to be talking to him because he is the same type. So to me it was a completely natural place to be. So we start having this online friendship, and basically in the end the whole thing ended because I could see through him. I could see through who he was and that he was very manipulative, wasn't actually willing or able to grow in the way that he told me he wanted to. It's not his fault, I'm not blaming him for that, but I was under the impression when he contacted me it was because he was actually connecting to what I was saying. But then after spending time talking, realising it wasn't, he just liked me. And will make a pretense of being interested in what I say, but he's not really. He's interested in me blowing smoke up his arse and being what he wants me to be. But I realise I'm not being that. So our relationship ended with us having a row on Skype because I'd pointed out things about him that I felt he needed to look at, and he was absolutely unwilling to go there, and actually got really nasty and shitty. So we're on the phone, he's shouting at me in a very aggressive way. I I get to the point. First of all, I'm doing the thing. I'm doing the thing where you try and appease it, going, as you do. And then after a few minutes, I thought, what are you doing? So I just said to him, there and then, talking to you is like talking to a fucking brick. Do not contact me again. And I cut it off. I blocked him on Facebook and other applications. The only thing that I couldn't block him on was email. He had my email. So within a couple of hours of this, I get an email, as if that whole thing hadn't happened, talking about how he understood and that he wasn't trying to rekindle our friendship, and then this, talking as if none of that conversation, none of me saying go away, had happened. I ignored it. And then the emails keep coming. And they're in a way that they're like, I had one yesterday that said something along the lines of, how are you? Will you stop being a bell and be my friend again? Because I'm not answering, the slight aggression is coming out because I'm not giving him what he wants. And then yesterday, obviously, he watches my video. I knew he would watch it at some point. So I get this email. Okay, so he's watched my video about narcissism. So, hi, Debs. Well, I enjoyed your new video. Very interesting. Do you think I'm a narcissist? Or just have some of the tendencies? I certainly relate to some of the things, but not all of them. My answer is yes, I do. Because a non-narcissistic person, when somebody says, leave me alone, you don't contact them. You don't keep on messaging them as if the other person hasn't asked you to leave them alone. You think, oh, I've upset this person and they've decided they don't want contact with me. I will respect that and I will leave this person alone. But this person is not doing that. He's decided that I am in his life. And the fact that I am not in his life is not stopping him in his fantasy that I am. So he says, is there no hope for narcissists? I don't think there is no hope, because the ego can dissolve under the right circumstances. But it takes a humbling in somebody who's narcissistic. It would take a complete humbling to the point where their false self was to dissolve and then them drop down into themselves and then have to build themselves back up. If a person is not willing to leave their head or not able, then they're going to get stuck. Because I really do believe this person does want to find his way out of it, but he's not actually able or willing to do any of the work that involves going down. So I'd find that when I explained to him about what he should do, he would always have an excuse for why he couldn't. And I found that with a lot of people that come to me for help that have this quality, is they will say, oh, they'll tell you what's wrong, and you'll say, well, what you need to do, or what I suggest is, and they never do it. What they'll do is they say things to you like, yeah, but it's all right for you because you had that experience. And you're going, yeah, but yes, I did. And because I've had that experience, I now understand how it works. And so I'm giving you advice as to what to do. Yeah, well, it won't work for me. It's all right for you. I've had that so many times with people where they contact me. They want your time all the time. I've had several men and female through doing these videos where they contact you and then they want to talk to you all the time because you've become a supply. But they'll say, get in contact and say, I need to talk to you about this and I'm dealing with this and da. And then you say, okay, and you talk to them and you'll spend ages. I've spent hours on the phone with people before, 3 hours at a time, trying to talk them through things. And then you leave them with, right, okay, what you need to do is spend an hour every day doing meditation and I'll speak to you next week or in a few days. Yeah, I'm definitely going to do it. I'm definitely going to do it. And then when you speak to them, yeah, well, I was going to do it, but what happened was, and anyway, this has happened. And then they just start the whole thing again where they're talking about themselves and not listening to anything you say. And to start with, I was really confused about this because I didn't understand. But now I realise it's because they don't want anything you have to say. They just want your energy. It's resonating for them. So they're drawn to you for your energy because they haven't got access to that energy inside. So I attract narcissistic people who want that feminineness. And so when they listen to me, they get a bit of supply because their own feminine is shut away. So when they hear my words, it connects them a bit to their shut away feminine and they feel nice. Or I get empathic people that genuinely want to work on themselves. And I realise now that you can tell the difference. I couldn't tell the difference before. because I didn't have all the parts, but now I can. So he goes on to say, it sounds like that they can never get out of it. Might as well kill yourself and hope for the better in the next life. So I see that, I don't know whether other people will, but I see that as a kind of a veiled threat. It's saying, be my friend. Do you think I'm a narcissist? And a bit later on, might as well kill yourself and hope for the best in the next life. So it's kind of saying, if you say I'm a narcissist, I might kill myself. So it's kind of saying, do you think I'm that? But say I am, and you will have my death on your hands. So it's kind of a veiled threat, isn't it? And the next thing is, that idea of them not being conscious is really horrifying. I would say to yourself, are you horrified by who you are? Because you are unconscious. So if you're finding being you horrifying, then yes, it is horrifying. Because when you're trapped up here, you're living in a made-up fantasy where you're disconnected from being able to feel. So everybody is just, nobody's actually a real person to you. They're just a supply that you need. It says, I'm not sure you even get these mails, as you don't respond. But if you do, I'm very interested in your insight, as ever. As maybe it could help me. What he's trying to do then is to reel me in by saying, I'm interested in what you have to say. But I know he isn't. Not really. And so, yes, I am getting these mails, but I'm not going to respond to them. Because I want you to leave me alone. To respect that I have asked you to leave me alone and leave me alone. That's what somebody who is not stuck in their mind will do. They will take what someone says. You might not like it, but you'll think, fair enough. I did act like a dick. This person doesn't want to be around me. I will respect that and leave them alone. I won't keep bombarding them with my own ideas and thoughts of what I want them to be and just completely pretend that they're not shunning me. What is that? Now, I didn't want to write under your YouTube clip because I thought that might be too weird and personal. And thanks for being discreet, by the way. Now, again, it's just come after. I'm not sure that you're getting these mails as you don't respond. And then the next bit, I don't want to write under your YouTube clips. But what he's saying really is, you're not answering my mails. I don't want to have to do that. But if you don't, I will be forced to. If you do, well, you can't because I've blocked you, so you can't actually comment on my things. And if you do, you find a way around it, I will remove them. And then he says, I'm not sure how much of that video is about me. It wasn't about you, because I don't think about you. You're not in my head. So it was about narcissism in general. It wasn't about you. It was about narcissists. But of course a narcissist will have to make it about them. Because in his head, I live in his head as this thing that he thinks I am. And he's assuming he's living in my head. But he's not. It's not about you. If it's so, you were discreet, so thanks. So again, that's a veiled threat. It's saying, please continue to be discreet about things you may say about me. He's just said I can comment underneath your videos. So carry on being discreet. So that again is a veiled threat. There's veiled threats mixed in with this kind of niceness. I hope to hear from you. And nice to see that you're looking happy and well. You won't hear from me. And I don't want to hear from you again. And if I do hear from you again, I will expose you. I will expose who you are. And I will contact your place of work. And I will tell them that you are stalking me. Okay? Leave me alone. Do not in any way make contact with me again. Okay? Thank you. You see, I don't want to get funny with anyone. I don't want to get nasty with anyone. But I don't want to be bombarded with other people's shit. Because he's decided I'm something and he has a right to me. In his head, he has a right to me. You have no right to me. No right to me whatsoever. Leave me alone. Right, so that's that really. Any questions again, please ask underneath because I'm happy to answer them because Oh, actually, I do have one more thing that I want to talk about, because I had a long conversation yesterday with somebody on Facebook who is right in the throes at the minute of in a relationship with a narcissistic person who is now at the discard stage of her. And this poor girl, she is going through an absolute nightmare, because this person love bombed her like crazy, made her feel like she was absolutely everything, because that's what they do, embroiled her in their world, and then started to say horrible things to her. And it's funny, actually, because one of the things she said that this person said was, "You're not my type. I like tall, leggy blondes." And that this girl is small and dark. And I had exactly the same thing said to me by somebody years ago. I was seeing someone, and they one day said to me that they didn't really fancy me because I wasn't their type. He liked tall, leggy blondes with big tits. And of course, I was sort of short and a bit fat. And at the same time, he told me that it was kind of like, not only are you not tall and blonde, but you are actually overweight. So if you could sort that out for me, I might be able to fancy you a bit more. You're never going to actually meet up to my expectations of what you are, because you're not my type. But if you could just be not so fat, then I might be able to fancy you a bit more. Now, I told this girl this yesterday, and her response to me was, "I hope you said good luck with your personality disorder." And of course, at the time, no, I didn't. What I did was I lost weight, I tried to grow my tits, and I wore high heels. Because when you don't feel you have a right, you go, "Oh my God, this person's gone completely right." Because he had more of the attitude of my father, who's all about looks and appearance. And so when you hear that from that person, you hear it from someone else, you assume they must be right. And so you try and adjust yourself to be what they want. And the funny thing is, this bloke, he was nothing special at all. Yet he felt he completely had the right to tell me that I wasn't right. But anyway, this girl is completely stuck in this place where she knows this person is a narcissist. She can hear all the red flags. They're all waving, the bells are ringing. She knows, because she's treated her so badly. She's grown up in narcissistic relationships. She has lots of knowledge, yet something is compelling her to still do it. She's meeting up with this person, and she's completely compelled to go, even though she knows that the outcome is not going to be good. But at the same time, she desperately wants it to be, because she's trying to fix that thing inside of her. And she thought that person was going to give her that. And now there's still part of her that's clinging on to bring that in. And so it's like literally, that thing inside of us that attracts us to the other side, the other type, it's so strong that it's almost impossible to not follow what it's telling you to do until you change it. So when you're in that situation and you can feel this absolute compulsion, that's the time to turn towards that and say, what is that? What is this feeling inside of me that's so absolutely gung-ho about this? Even though I know, it's like you're running towards someone who you know is going to slap you in the face, but you can't stop running towards them. And it's because in the beginning, the love they gave you was so amazing. It felt so wonderful. You've never felt love like that. It was electric. It was amazing, wonderful. And you want that back. But it wasn't real. So you're going after that thing that was there to start with, even though it's never going to be there again. And so it's a very strange phenomenon how we are completely blind to our own particular flavour of disconnect. So yeah, I am going to leave that now. I'm going to say adios, amigos, and speak to you again. Any more questions, ask away. I can't find where to turn this off because I can't find it. Oh, there it is. Bye.